Hemant, hi, it's good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hey, hi Ashu. Good to see you too. Doing very well. Been busy building and selling.
I like the way you put it. I like the way you put it. But I hope everybody is safe at home, in family, at work. And I hope COVID hasn't been as disastrous as otherwise it has been.
Yeah, no. So been pretty lucky till now. I think also in the team we've been pretty lucky. Not obviously some all of us have been impacted in some way or the
Right,
other.
right.
But I think been blessed so far. Been stayed.
Fingers
Every
crossed.
yeah, yeah.
Hemant, this was a discussion that I was kind of looking forward to, right? Because I think the most effective sector that has been there across COVID, right, in terms of adoption of technology and the transformation and very quickly, very agile movement that has happened essentially in the edutech sector or the education sector, right? And technology has been adopted across institutions, which was supposed to be very bureaucratic, right, when it came to acceptance of technology, implementing technology, and you know what I mean, right? I think till about 2019, there was literally no conversation of edtech investments, right, in the country. Very, very few were happening, barring essentially just about say Beju's and a couple of others, right? There was hardly any conversation. And come
And
2020, and
were
all of a sudden,
mostly consumer, right?
absolutely correct, correct,
I mean,
absolutely correct,
today hardly any in the enterprise or the SaaS
right,
space.
absolutely. And and come 2020, and all of a sudden, I mean, it was raining money, right? Pretty much for every single business that had anything to do with the education sector, and anybody who's offering a solution in the edtech space, right? Be it pre-seed rounds, be it seed rounds, Series A, Series B, and beyond, right? And I think people are, and look at the kind of acquisitions that have happened. They've been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, who would have expected an Akash-like acquisition to happen, right? And here
Absolutely.
it happened, right? And companies like White Hat Junior, right? The speed and scale that they were built at and the way they were acquired was absolutely phenomenal, right? So I think it's been a happy phase for, I think, the industry, right? Which was which didn't see action for a very long time, right? Right. And I think that's, and I'm sure it must have been good to be there, right? Yourself, given that you're working with so many institutions.
Yeah, so I think things have been a little different in the sense, see, whatever you see in the edtech is largely 99% of it is actually the consumer side of things, right? So
Right.
it's selling courses, selling preparation
Sure.
for tests, right? Kind of things, right? Uh, but if you look at any industry, there are two kind of companies. There are companies who are actually selling to the consumers, and there are companies who are actually building solutions for the companies who are, selling to the customers, right?
Right.
So while there are the companies who are selling tickets, there are also companies which provide software that runs airlines,
Sure.
or learn the whole airport systems and all, right?
Right.
And like all, like the SAPs and Microsoft of the world are
Right.
like largely driving a lot of the enterprises in the world, right? So we come in as a company in a way which provides technology to educational institutions and edtechs
Right.
to help them cater to their consumers, right? Or
Right.
their students, or and so things have been a little different here, primarily because see, this sector has been has that a lot of stigma around it, because a lot of
Right.
companies have tried doing things here
Right.
and failed, or they sort of fuzzed up in terms of numbers and other things, right?
Right.
And second, in general, it's difficult to sell and serve to institutions, so
Right.
that stays, yeah.
I think we're going to cover some bits of that, right? I think in the questions, to the conversation, right? But Hemant, before we do, before we start working around and and start discussing the, around pole and and many other things that you're doing around it, and how you're scaling and so on and so forth, right? Why don't you take us through the background? I think a quick round of introduction will be helpful, and will be a good starting point.
I think the first interesting thing I did was I dropped out of it, like MBBS, right? So I cracked
Okay.
CBSE PMP and didn't take admission, and my parents thought I was crazy.
Mhm.
Uh, and that was largely driven by because of the advice one of my physics teachers gave me, right?
Right.
And like, I think you'll be great in technology. Don't go in medicine, go to tech, right? And
Interesting.
and I had only a few options, like I had Indraprastha in Delhi or
Right.
Manipal in Delhi, because those were the only institutions who will take a non-mathematics student in engineering.
Right.
So I decided to go to VIT. So my parents were like, okay, we'll book your tickets, we'll get you guest house and everything done, but we are not a part of it. So do it alone.
Right.
So I remember taking a flight from Delhi, landing in Chennai, taking a bus, coming down to Vellore, and getting my counseling seat done.
Right.
And that time I was so shit scared because I'd left all that and I'm here.
Right.
like, okay, I hope I should get an admission.
Right.
And I ended up being actually one of the top 50 students there. So in fact,
Wonderful.
got a scholarship, right? So,
Right.
so I think that's how things started. First year remains to be the same in college. You do
Right.
whatever. Especially being a Delhiite, you know what we will do in college, right? So,
Right.
but second year is when I actually applied to a challenge which was hosted by Ashoka and
Right.
MIT together. This is Ashoka Innovators for the Public, which is a social entrepreneurship organization, right? And a bunch of emails over a few weeks and months. I got selected for their, for the competition that they were running, and that I think changed everything for me because I got $1,000 check from Bank of America, which was like such a special thing,
Right.
right? And started getting mentoring from some very interesting set of people from DC and all, and to a
Right.
guy who just come in college. It was a pretty
Right.
celebration, and college was putting pictures and also. I think that's the point when things changed.
Right.
Got to travel. I think 3 years in university, got to travel a lot. In fact, we were one of the top 50 students startups to be showcased at New York Stock Exchange.
Wow.
Went to Barcelona, gave a talk at ISB, IIT Madras, and also I think a lot of things, a lot of exposure, a lot of
Right.
interactions with people that gave me that sort of confidence that there is a lot to life beyond the degree.
Right.
And I think that's what triggered my entrepreneurial, journey. And then
Fantastic.
loved education, so started working in this space. So I had a consulting stint with Manipal, and the World Bank, and tried setting up a design and a leadership school in Delhi.
Right.
I think that's where the love for education and tech both brought me to Golpur.
And
Yeah.
I think more importantly, being independent, right? I think when you work for yourself, I think it's very difficult to go back and I think kind of limit yourself in a silo, right? I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah, absolutely, because I think startups give you that opportunity to really take the problems head on, right? However entrepreneurial an organization may be, but you still would be limited in terms of how much you can actually go and
right.
take problems, right? So I think startups are an amazing. And I think back then when I was starting up, like 2000, this is 2014 or 13 end, right?
Right.
We were still not that startup. I would say, there were not so many opportunities.
I agree. I
Today,
agree.
like, it's incredible. People get paid far better than
They do. Yes.
startups. They
Yeah.
get more opportunity. They get more growth. So
Yeah.
things have changed a lot now.
Right. Interesting. Hemant, there's some very interesting work that you're doing at Colpol, right? And it's evolved from what you were doing, and and today what you offer, right? So I think from being a solution provider, now you are like a stack, right? It's like a complete platform which is available for institutions, right? Tell me a little about your target segment, and tell me a little about the solutions that you are, offering, and how has that journey been, right? How has that evolution been? I think it'll be interesting to know.
Yeah, so the idea is very simple. We want everything that is non-teaching and non-learning to be digitized in institutions. That's
Right.
number one. Second, we want stakeholders and educational institutions to be more data-driven than just
Right.
business-driven, right? That's second. Third, we think there is far more to learning beyond just theory and instruction.
Right.
Whenever technology can come and actually support the teaching learning process, bring in the right technologies there, right? And that's the the goal. So with what we started with saying that, look, while there are a lot of edtechs in the world which are going to go and provide learning and courses and others to students, see, institutions have their role to play, because like I mentioned last time, there's much more to a college. It's not just about the classes you attend.
Right.
There's a lot of learning about life that happens,
Correct.
the friendship, the personality, growth,
Right.
the struggles you have, the friendships you
Coexistence.
form, a lot of things, right? So
Right.
institutions have a really large role to play.
Right.
And right time for technology to come and support institutions in sort of reimagining themselves in the new technology world that we are. And things have been slow, but luckily what's also happening is, see, there is a combination of competition,
Right.
complexity, and compliance, right? A lot more institutions today. So demand supply has changed, right? So institutions can't be lazy as they were earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Second is the complexities. So there
Right.
is choice-based credit system, industry immersion, compulsory internships, and also there's no other way than adopting technology to
Right.
solve, right? And third is more compliance, right? We are talking about so many new kind of compliance, like you need to have a grievance redressal system, you need to have like faculty feedback systems, and so many
Right.
things to be recorded and documented.
Sure.
A combination of that, and then bang comes COVID, right? So it's like things were already moving, and now suddenly somebody has like put a growth engine behind, right? And
Right.
things have gone fast. So there's huge shift in the last 1 year in terms of how institutions are adopting technology, and which is I think a very positive sign. And we have seen institutions who are like tier 2, tier 3 signing up. There are
Right.
institutions who are already ahead in the curve, but they are now adopting more advanced stuff, right? So
Right.
I think it's a growth in all aspects in all different areas. Now, in terms of what do we provide? See, we provide an end-to-end digital campus stack, right?
Right.
We are the core digital asset of an institution.
Right.
What does that mean? We provide the traditional ERP, which is the finance, fees management, admission
Right.
management, all those things, right? Then we top it up with a digital learning stack, where we say, okay, academics management, learning management, and examination management,
Right.
all connected to each other seamlessly, right? The third thing, which is a big innovation that we brought in, is a no-code uh, automation tool, right, or a business process automation tool. So
Mhm.
imagine from the smallest things like swimming pool booking to a
Right.
security pass to things like somebody requesting for a maintenance service in the cabin,
Right.
to the biggest of the flows, and also making the system more open, like vice chancellors, open office hours where people can book and go and meet,
Right.
right?
Right.
There are like all these things were happening actually in a physical way, or emails or phone calls. And these are the things which happen. Like, how many times do you pay fees? Once or
Right.
twice? How many times do you give an exam? Once or twice
Right.
in a year? But these workflows happen on daily basis, right?
Right.
And people are struggling getting them done. So we built, and over the last 3 years, we built something remarkable there, which is very well appreciated by the institutions, where we automate any flow, right? And at the
Interesting.
moment, we automate almost 1,000+ workflows with that, right?
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Hemant, very interesting, right? Which are some of the marquee customers that you're dealing with right now? I mean, if you don't mind sharing, right? Some of the names
I
that you
treat
kind of
every
empowering.
customer equally, Ashu, but so I'll not use the term marquee. I'll say
Fair enough.
everybody is equal. But some of the customers or the institutions we partner with is like Ashoka University is one.
Right.
Google Global University has been a partner for a long time. We really cherish
Right.
the partnership.
Right.
Or Bennett University is the one. Or like Chitkara University, or we have a Baba Farid, or we have DY Patil, you
Right.
know, in that, and then also another partner which I can't name obviously, but
Right.
a big name, and
Right.
it's going to be a bigger name. Yeah.
Very interesting. Hemant, I want to particularly talk about 2020, right, and what's happened in a post-COVID environment, right? Basically, the transition, right, of a pre-COVID to a post-COVID, right? And edtech, like I said right at the start, right, at the outset of our conversation, right, that edtech was not something which was seeing many investments to happen, right? It was more on the consumer side where money was sort of coming in, and of course, the valuation was being driven in a certain form and way. Um, and and all of a sudden, and this was, and essentially the perspective was that when you try and sell in an edtech, in an enterprise environment in edtech, typically what happens is there's a lot of bureaucracy, right? So while the number one guy could agree, the many layers under it, right, don't necessarily agree, right? And I think that is the mindset was like a massive challenge, right? And I think that was possibly one thing that many people realized, right? The initial exuberance and enthusiasm that was there in 2015, 2016 around investing in edtech companies and so on and so forth, right, kind of died out, right? It was pretty flat for the next 3 4 5 years, right? And here comes COVID, right? So from being a sell proposition, all of a sudden there was an ask, right? There was a natural demand, industry demand, which sort of came up for many of these tools, processes, systems to be deployed into institutions, right? So that faculty institution can interact with the student better, right? How has this phase been, right? And do you think this is something which is going to go on to continue, right? Because I think while of course I have a different question around it, right? But do you think this is something which is going to continue, right? So is this an aberration, or is this something which is here to stay? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. Okay. So I think see so the good thing about this space is that because it's tough to execute,
Sure.
it keeps the opportunists away, right?
Right.
People come, they try, they think
Very interesting.
they can pump the money, or they can do some fancy advertisements or
Right.
promotions and get in there. It doesn't happen there, right? That's
Right.
one. Second thing is, this is also a very trust driven market, right?
Mhm.
If you prove yourself, like if you see in the last so many years, all these
Sure.
numbers I'm talking to you about, it has happened without any like much of promotion or
Right.
right? So it's a very trust driven market. That's another good thing about it, right? Third thing is that it's also a space where there is high stickiness, right? So if you
Right.
do well, then you are there for a long haul, right? You're not going to get, it's not like that tomorrow somebody throws a better discount and the people will switch. They
Right.
don't. That's the good part of the market. And I think, to me as an entrepreneur, the most important part is you get to make an impact, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, you also see the amount of change you are able to bring in an institution, in quality, in productivity, in cutting down costs and other things.
Right.
Now, the tough part of this, which is the biggest part, like, the 2 or 3 top problems in this space is, one, there is no standardization here, right?
Right.
Every single institution does examination in their own unique ways, right? And there's no logic to it, right? It's
Right.
just that they've been doing things that way, so they want to continue to do things that
Sure.
way. It means bringing in quality enterprise technology becomes difficult because
Right.
you have to go and change the system for everybody, right?
Right.
And that's where, again, you need to be strong, and you need to put your foot down to the customer and say, no, this is the best practice, this is the standard, and I'm not going to change because of you.
Right.
So be ready to walk out of deals if so be the case, but you stick to, because that's one of the reasons why I've seen a lot of well-intentioned people come and really lose in this market, because they tried stretching themselves,
Right.
into exploration. That's one. Second thing is, behavioral change is the biggest problem, right?
Right.
There would be some random person in a college or a university so rigid, and he's in the knee. I have been doing it this way, I will continue this way, right?
Right.
And these are not the places where there is a corporate hierarchy, where, let's say there is whatever is in the interest of the company what finally drives decisions, right? But what happens in institutions is a lot of decisions are layer in, nahi hai hamare bahut purane registrar hain, ya fir there is a very
Right.
old
I know what you mean.
officer, I can't tell him to do it in this way, so aap
Right.
dekhiye, right? And then that becomes a challenge. That's the second part. Third, see, paying capacity. The unfortunate part is, institutions are ready to spend crores of rupees on advertisements on
Right.
newspapers and others, but they're not yet ready to invest that big way in the technology, which is changing. I am seeing a huge change in that. But what happens is, when you pay pennies, you get things worth pennies, right?
Right.
So if on one side you got to build an amazing tech company which is powered by top engineers, top product managers, right, top customer success team members, on the other side the market doesn't pay you well enough, then what
Right.
happens? The funding is gonna dry, up
Sure. At some point.
yeah. So you got to be very careful to work with the partners who value you and is ready
Right.
to pay the right price for it.
Right.
Because most institutions still use the lens of cost. They don't use the lens of value or return. So for them it's like, acha ye to 200 rupees mein aa raha hai. Then I'm like, boss,
Right.
wo value is also 250 300 rupees worth, right? Let's say something is coming at a more price, but it creates a far higher value. So put the lens of a value or a return rather than the cost, right? But that's also not something most institutions have yet, but that change is happening. We are seeing that change on the ground, and all the conversations I have with my investors all the time, I show them the data on the ground, that how things are changing, how so many tier 2, tier 3 institutions were ready to write bigger checks, were ready to invest in having IT officers or CIOs or CTOs. So I think the future is quite bright. It's not an aberration, because once a change happens in such ways, it just happens, there could be a different Ola or Uber in the future, but nobody is going back to not taking taxis anymore, right? People are not going to, easily, especially, the middle class or upper middle class, you're not going to autos and to buses back, right?
Right.
They are going to stick to taxis now, whether they are pooling or individual. So once a behavior is set, it's not going to go away.
Hemant, how has the funnel changed? How has the funnel life cycle changed? Right? How sharp has it become around this time?
Pretty neat, actually. I think a lot of inquiries. We get almost like a one inquiry every day, which is a legitimate inquiry, right?
Right.
Some institutions are absolutely keen to talk to us, understand what we are doing, right? Which wasn't the case earlier. That's one.
Sure.
Second, a lot of institutions who've been talking to us come back and say, hey, how quickly can you guys go live, right?
Right.
So there's far more intensity in terms of going live, implementation, and other things. So things are changing, but I think, we have to wait for things to get a little bit more stable. So we were about to see that happen, but then the second wave came in, because most of the institutions are also stuck by cash flows, right?
Right.
So while the intention is that, yes, we want to take more technology and be more sort of tech driven, but where's the money, right? They're all struggling on cash flows. The fees are coming, admissions are delayed. So except the top universities or colleges, most of the others are still struggling, right? So I think we'll have to give another 6-9 months before institutions. But now that they are sort of, they know what they didn't have. I think the intentions are all set. Most of the institutions are going ahead and going to be more technology driven.
Interesting, interesting. Hemant, I think what you offer right now, the entire stack that you offer is essentially a hybrid stack, right? And it's for an offline and online environment both, right?
Yeah.
One of my biggest questions, right, is that while of course there's a huge surge which has happened in, let's say, number of inquiries, people's interest, adoption, right, implementation, everything, right, and it's been a very different kind of a turnaround, right? I think nobody could have anticipated this kind of a turnaround to happen in a very, very bureaucratic environment, right? And I think education has been laced with a lot of bureaucracy, right? It's essentially been the decision making is in the hands of a few people, and of course the implementation is many, many people, and it is like you said, right? It is looked at from the lens of cost and not from a lens of the overall improvement, right? At least till recently, it was not, right? Do you think that and you answered in a certain way, right? That with an Ola and Uber example, right? But do you think that process might slow down as things get back to normal? Because I mean, you know, these are institutions that have been prepared, and have been doing similar things for many many years, right? So do you think that in that adoption right now, that exuberance right now, that need for a digital platform might taper down once we get back into the environment?
So what will go down is the Zoom and Google Meet and Microsoft Teams, Ashu, right?
Sure,
Because once the students are in the class, you're not going to be doing Zoom classes, right? Or you're not
sure,
going to be doing, right? But
sure.
they will still continue to use a learning management system to manage assignments, to conduct quizzes, right? They are still going to continue collecting fees online,
Right.
they will still continue to, do their admissions online.
Sure.
So I think there is going to be a large part of this digitization that's here to stick around and
Right.
actually rather grow further, right?
Right.
And then the people can see how productivity is increased and so
Right.
many things, right? And the less there are certain parts of it which will go, like get reduced, which is like I said, the online classes will go down,
Right.
right? For sure. A lot of interactions which are happening online will again go back to a physical environment, you know. So that it's just like how corporates would, right? We will all
Right.
continue to use the Slacks and Google workspaces or Teams, right, for interactions and all. We might not be doing this call, probably me and you will be sitting at a coffee shop and having a conversation, but we'll still continue to
I
work and
agree.
collaborate digitally.
Right. Interesting. Hemant, which is the one particular, say, the subset of product in your entire stack that you've been excited about the most, right? Which you
Yeah.
think as you kind of fought it out for, and it's played out beautifully around this time, right? Which is that one piece that you've been excited about?
So there are two things I think which have played out quite well. Ashu, one, the original thing that we started with, the collaboration and engagement play,
Okay.
right? We wanted a digital campus or a physical campus being mimicked in an online environment, right? So initially it was like a good to have, and people were like, "Oh yeah, it's great," but who wants to post a notice and all. But in the COVID period, we saw the amount of, in fact, we sometimes saw our servers crashing because
Right.
utilization was very high, right? And we had to literally re-architect a lot of things there to say that,
Right.
okay, let's meet the demand.
Right.
So that's one thing, like how, because see, people are used to the Slacks and the WhatsApps and others, right?
Right.
So there's a similar environment for their college communication or institution information and all. So
Right.
that was one big thing that worked, I think, really well. The second is which is I think I'm more excited about what also we are rolling out pretty soon, and you'll get to see that. So we are very excited about how technology can play a role in making learning more complete. Okay.
Right.
So NEP is already talking about multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, right, and all those things. So I think technology will come in very handy there. How a biotech guy can also go and take up a course in Python or in Java if he's interested, or
Right.
how a business graduate can also go and study, let's say, how electrical vehicles work, right?
Right.
So the ability to adopt technology to bring in multidisciplinarity, let students pursue things not because they've been in a degree now, but to chase is something that we are very excited. We're rolling out something in August on that, and we're very excited about how it will help a lot of Indian institutions become more flexible and open, like top global universities.
Interesting. Do any names come to your mind? People you want to go back to who were naysayers early on, this is going to work and that is not going to work and stuff like that. You
Really,
know what I mean? Right?
I think I've had very interesting conversations where people have written me check by sometimes being skeptical, saying, we trust you, but we don't know how much this market will work or not, right? And my pitch to them was, I'll prove you wrong. Give me time, right? So absolutely, but I see. I'm a very very firm believer in actually focusing on people who are believing in you,
Right.
that or not. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, because
I'm not gonna push you further to sort of answer that. But that was on a lighter note, Hemant. And and as an entrepreneur, these are many. There are many people you come across, right, who essentially start from a point of saying that this can't work, right? And of course,
on a actual side, Ashu, I'm very happy if people think this way about the market, because that means less competition for us. Okay, so if more and more investors think, oh, this is a very tough market, this is a bad market, oh, great, keep believing that. It's good for us because we have our set of believers, we have our set of investors, right? So it's all good for us. So we are
well,
happy to keep going.
I like some of the ways that you look at it, right? I like the way you look at it. I think that's a good arbitrage that you kind of talk about. Hemant, you highlighted NEP, right? You highlighted learning, right? I think one thing which has definitely happened around this time is that I think institutions have had their chance to go back, right? Well, of course, there has been one side of the fight where they've been wanting to normalize their operations, right? And I think technology has really come in handy as far as that bit is concerned, right? But the other side was, to understand the student better, right? Because here comes NEP, which talks about a very liberal ecosystem, right? Of students can go and pursue many things, right? There's massive flexibility which is there. There's cross learning which is happening and stuff like that, right? But unfortunately, not a lot of these institutions were essentially geared to understand a student at that level. Maybe the student also doesn't understand, right? There could be certain things that start from an interest, could be a fad, which might not necessarily lead into definitive learning in the process, right? Thus, it's become very important for, say, many systems that are being deployed in education institutions to help students understand him or her better. And of course, the faculty and the overall, the academia side of things to understand the student better, right? And also their pedagogy, right? How is that entire equation playing out? Because I think going forward, this is a very, very fundamental change that at a policy level, which is coming into the education ecosystem, right, in India, and possibly we're going to be a very exciting market in that sense, right?
Very
How do you view that, and how is your system enabling that?
So absolutely, I think you have got an amazing insight here, Ashu. And so I again very firmly believe that when a learner is there, teacher appears, right? So the first important part of any good learning environment is how do you sort of bring more consciousness among your students about learning, right? So there is a phase that's going on. I don't think you can bring in technologies, especially machine learning and artificial intelligence and others, to
Right,
play till the time you have really good sets of data, right?
right,
What's happened is that platforms like ours, who have been there for, let's say, some quality time
right,
and have seen the search, we have a lot of fine data sitting with us where we've been learning and understanding how a student can be guided better, how a faculty student gaps could be met better, how a
right.
faculty get the right feedback from the students to know what's exactly going on in class, right? So I think we are still about an year away before we would see advanced technology start playing a bigger role in improving the consciousness of the learner,
Right.
improving the effectiveness of a teacher, helping the institutions make the right decisions, right? Like I keep seeing, we've been trying a lot on thinking about how we can actually automate a lot of decision making, right, in institutions, but standardization is yet to happen, and
Right.
we're seeing at least the promoters being open minded. you
Right.
know I think there are a lot of the promoter groups I work very closely with, and I'm seeing they being very open minded about changing their procedures,
Right.
processes, aligning themselves, because then only they can really take the advantage of you get a, let's say, RPA in the campus on some decision making,
Right.
your system is outdated, and how would you'll invest in it, it will stick around, and it's like I always say, right, it's like that treadmill that you buy and then you put your clothes on it, right? Right.
Right.
So the same happens with technology in institutions. They put
Right.
money in technology and it keeps lying around for a few years, and then suddenly they're like, "Arey, it's not working for us," right? And that's it. So about a year, I think we should have more data to put advanced technologies into play.
Right.
We will have more standardization in processes of institutions.
Right.
And by then, I think the technology will go to the next level. So we'll move from the system of record and engagement to the systems of intelligence leap. I think we'll take that leap that time.
Interesting. Hemant, there's a huge conversation which is going on, especially at a higher ed, right? There's a huge conversation which is going around, and for academia to come closer to the industry, right? And of course, for the industry to now come closer to the academia, right? So of course, one is that learning has to kind of change, and it has to be cross-functional stuff like that, right? But also, what has happened is that there's going to be little time. I mean, given the the complete consumer side narrative has kind of changed, right? And it's become so much more dynamic, means that there's going to be a lot more pressure on academia, right, to deliver in a very quick turnaround time, because industry might not have the time to have people, onboard people, train them, and then sort of deploy them in projects, right? Because the product life cycle is going to find shortened, right? Is there something that you're doing on that front as well? Are you enabling that interaction between industry and academia as well? Is there a channel that you're creating,
Yeah. So
or enabling it?
yeah, absolutely. So that's something that we've been thinking about a lot, right? But like I said, we are still early. And when I say we are I'm talking about the technology adoption in institutions. We are, I
Right.
think, in the early phases.
Sure.
It's exciting because, see, unlike a lot of global universities, because we don't really have anything in the tech stack. So the idea
Right.
is we jump to some of the most advanced stuff, right?
Sure.
I always give the example of, like, whenever I had a chance to be in New York, the metros are really old, right?
Right.
And there's a cost to now changing it, because it's not that easy. While if you look at the metros in Delhi, they're like, we have one of the best systems, because we didn't have anything, so we could
Sure.
bring the data, right? So I
Right.
think in India we have that opportunity, because we don't have legacy systems or legacy softwares. Where institutions. I was talking to a US-based university, or a one in the UK, and they're like, we have spent thousands of dollars on this SAP system, or you've got
Right.
thousands of dollars in this PeopleSoft, right?
Right.
And how do we justify now throwing this out, or
Right.
using the usage, right? So I think India is well positioned in terms of no legacy systems. We can straight away
Right.
jump to this technology. We've got a young population. We are pretty good in terms of our technology utilization in our personal lives. So very less behavioral, I would say, gaps in terms of using softwares.
Right.
Now bringing in industry, I think that's the next step. It will for sure happen. There is no I would say, but that's happening to a very large extent already.
Right.
I see banks are collaborating closely with institutions now. I see a lot of other corporates are now going directly to the institutions, offering courses, or
Right.
a 6-month immersion program, saying, okay, your students can come and do a 6-month training with us, and then we can absorb them in the. So I think
Right.
more and more of that will happen. But still, I think about a year, we'll have to give a year minimum for the institutions to get their basics right first.
Interesting. Hemant, a very interesting point that you highlighted, right? That when you're talking to players in the developed ecosystem, right, or developed market, right? US, UK, they're talking about PeopleSoft, they're talking about SAP, right? And unfortunately, India is not. I mean, there was an adoption problem, right? So irrespective of who it was, right, there was no adoption which was happening, right? It was very slow moving adoption, right? And that possibly gave you a clean canvas, right, to sort of go out, build, and some of the other players as well in the ecosystem sort of go out and acquire these clients and customers, right? But how difficult was it? I mean, when you sort of enter a relationship, right? Do they have doubts on delivery capabilities because you're a startup? I mean, this is something that I faced, right? And this was for one of the startups that we were working with early on, right? And when business very clearly highlighted the business continuity risk, right? And his argument in the process was that you are a function of the funding that you have, right? The day that exhausts, right, you'll possibly fold up and move out, which is not the case with me. I am deeply invested. I am profitable. I'm going to be here for next 10, 15, 20, 17, 20 years, right? What happens in case you move out, right? Is that something that you also encountered while you've been, out there talking to many, many customers?
Yeah, so absolutely. I think we have had our set of believers and non-believers, right?
Right.
But most of the time, I've seen that being just an excuse for somebody not wanting to work with you. Okay.
Okay.
So I've had some very large universities who are like, "Arey, no, your support team is too small. You
Right.
know, how will you support us, and how will
Sure.
you do?" But that was just some IT guy who didn't want to get his job being
Right.
in India, right?
Right.
And I'm very clear, right, on this. See, promoters know that they started as small colleges themselves,
Right.
right? You might have a very large university today, but you started with a small college, or you started with
Right.
a small coaching center, right? So people remember their humble beginnings as well. And I think
Right.
most of them are very, I think I have had some of the best conversations with a lot of promoters of institutions where
Right.
they were very, very, humble, very straightforward. They wanted to work because they know how this works, right? How a smaller, younger bank will give you far better service than an older, far
Right.
larger public sector bank, right?
Right.
And service and other things is what matters to you. I think it all depends on who are the set of people in the
Right.
institution. We had set of challenges, but that never really bothered us because we had enough believers, right?
Right.
And today, if you see, we have enough on our plate, so we don't really bother about that too much, right? And in fact, some of the largest of the institutions have trusted us. So that's one. Second, like I said, it's a trust-driven market, right? So you need
Right.
to build a trust where people really believe that, oh yeah, if they're working with them for several years, then they would be good, right?
Right.
Types of, right? So that's the second thing. But third,
Right.
it's also true, Ashu. So you have to also see that it's true that a lot of people tried playing the short term game here,
Right.
came with some funding, thought they could, just
Right.
get the market in a few months or weeks, and then try to, cash it out and all. And they've had bad experiences.
Right.
So probably, yeah. I mean, there are some bad experiences. Plus, the industry doesn't really have the people who can manage and work on some of these younger startups in that model. And by default, it's like they say, no, nobody gets fired to hire IBM, right? That was the
Yeah.
saying.
Right. In fact,
Which
I was just about to come to that, Hemant, right? That, I mean, when you bring in any of these large enterprises, right, and when you implement such systems, right, it's also a marketing brownie point saying that, we are powered by this or we are powered by that, and that becomes a good cosmetic play as well, right? And that becomes a good hook when you are soliciting students, right, from
But
across the board.
we're pretty happy, Ashu. So that's I think a lot of institutions show us in that way now
Okay.
because we work with some of the topmost institutions in the country. So
Right.
there are so many institutions who call us for their induction programs, and they want us to give a talk that time, or they want
Right.
to showcase their digital campus, and
Right.
they want to specifically talk about which are the other institutions who are using this
Right.
So I think you get there, right? So Google was a startup once, Microsoft, everybody was a startup once. It's like hang in there, deliver value, and people will trust you, right? So I
Right.
think it's the case with us, right? So I think we're pretty happy we've gone into that zone. At least people don't doubt our capabilities anymore, right?
And I think you've possibly been there long enough, right, for people to sort of trust you, right? And I think that entire possibly the perception that they had, right, of a fly by night operator, which you kind of highlighted, right, that there've been some who kind of operate in that way. At least
And
that,
also, are you somebody who the existing customers trust? You
right,
know, let's say somebody picks up the phone and calls another institution which is using it, And I'm not saying everybody will, because there are also a lot of institutions we would have pissed off by not, agreeing to their customization requirements,
right,
right?
right,
Or trying to say, give them things for cheap. We've been very, very, rather, and we are very proud of that. We've been very clear on what we bring on the table and how we want
right,
to stick to that, right?
right,
Uh, and then we have not given into politics. We stay out of politics of institutions. We're like, that's your
right,
internal matter. You sort it out, right?
right,
Uh, we're not here to please people. We are here to provide you a good technology, right? So I think being around for some time, believing in in who you are, creating
right.
value, I think solves all these things over a period of time. And also,
Uh,
the thing I think which really helped us is we have a very, see, if you look at despite being a startup, if you look at our board, we have been very, very serious about who are the set of people. We have a former director of IIM Bangalore who's on
right,
our board. We've got the MD and CEO of Manipal Global, or we have got two professors who are on our board. So it's
right,
companies, when and that shows again the professionalism. And I can tell you there would hardly be any other company in this space which does work similar to ours, which would
right,
have professional board, which will have independent board directors, right?
right.
And that shows like how we run our company.
Interesting. I think that's a lot of responsibility that you talk about. In fact, there's a very interesting question that has just sort of come to my mind, which was not part of the the bunch of questions that I had for you. But this is something I'm going to reserve for the last as we sign out, right? But before we jump onto that, right? Hemant, Bharat has been has been an opportunity which has been discussed massively in last I think about a year, right? Ever since COVID happened, Bharat was an opportunity which everybody's been talking about, right? And I think that is also not wrong, largely because the world kind of converged on just about a few screens, right? And so did Bharat, right? Which essentially meant that now there are people who are there's a certain digital footprint that they have. Now they are traceable, they're trackable. You can communicate with them. All of that sort of opened up, right? How do you view that as an opportunity, right? Because even today, I mean, exposure has been the biggest of all gaps when it comes to education institutions in, say, a tier 2, tier 3, and downwards, right? Vis-a-vis education institutions in urban markets, right? The promoter orientation is very different. The promoter perception is very different. Their own education is very, very different, right? And Bharat operates in a completely different way, right? Where education and higher education is also a business opportunity in many, many ways, right? How do you see that, right? And what's how big is that going to be next phase of growth for Coalpol?
Yeah, so I think we as a platform, Ashu, we have both the use cases, right? We go and touch the most core parts of an institution like finance, where admissions, teaching learning processes,
Right,
right? Examinations, which are like the core. It's like your dal roti, right?
right,
Which required, correct? And then
right,
we have advanced things like the security gate passes. We have
right,
switch bookings, the no dues processes, which is like I would say the broccoli, right?
right,
On the other fancy side, right?
right,
So as a platform, we have both the sides, right?
right,
So we end up serving the both. So we have several tier 2, tier 3 institutions where we are adding value by helping them continue their teaching learning processes, by
right,
helping them collect fees online, by helping them do their admissions online. On the other side, we also have advanced processes where we are helping institutions, with the no dues process for the graduating students, where we are helping institutions with the self-declaration
right.
workflows is coming in the campus. So as a platform, the aim is, or the vision is that, look, we'll start with the core use cases, but even we will try to take the tier 2, tier 3 institution in the advanced stage over a period of time.
Interesting. Hemant, what are the next 2 years like, right? For Coalpol, right? I would have asked. I mean, I would have ideally asked a 5-year question, but I think that's not relevant enough. I think we're in a different market altogether.
Yeah.
So
So
what are the next 2 years like?
the idea is next 1 year win India.
Mhm.
We're already going very fast here, so build on
Okay.
that momentum. We still have some more stuff to do on the product. We
Right.
think there's more to be done here. So get around there quickly, right? And we've been seeing a lot of traction in the global markets, but we haven't yet
Right.
made up our mind in going there.
Right.
But I'm very sure about a year down the line, we will start doing that aggressively.
Right.
Third is also to let institutions get the power of other innovations, right? So once we are in, how do we help other players be able to serve to the institutions, right? So we
Right.
just, for example, we integrate with so many other softwares. We just integrated with loan providers.
Right.
Considering we're already facilitating fees payment, why can't we
Right.
have a sort of a seamless loan integration into the
Right.
system? So the idea is continue building on what we have. Let others also collaborate with others as well, so that there's a larger technology ecosystem that's at play, and
Right.
also go global.
And on the number of clients,
Yeah, so
what's the aspiration?
aspiration is very clear. So there are 40,000 higher education institutions. About 8,000 is what we target.
Right.
So in the 2 years, wouldn't want to settle for less than 1,000.
Very interesting. Hemant, my last question, right? I think I've had a splendid conversation, right? I think a very honest conversation, very to the point conversation, right? The kind of conversations that I like, right? A very personal question, right? Is that you were the opening batsman of your company, right? You've essentially been out there. You built it from your own hands, right? Like you'd mentioned, right? You've taken 70, 80 flights in a year. And you've been across the markets, right? And India is not an easy market. India is a very complicated market, right? Which has very, very complex challenges, right? At a regional level. What's your 2 cents on founder sanity, right? For founders to maintain the sanity, right? Because if you've done it in enterprise, if you've done it in education, I mean, that's like the holy grail, right? It can't get more. I don't want to use the word frustrating, but it cannot be more exasperating than that, right? Which is almost closer to that, right? What are your 2 cents on that one?
Yeah, so okay, so I think it depends on what are you in it for, right? So
Right.
we had opportunities to sell, in several times. We had opportunity to raise more money, but that came with the wrong expectations, right?
Right.
So I think the single thing that keeps driving you is what is in it for you, right?
Right.
And I think for me, what is in it is that I really believe this is a problem worth solving. I also believe there is a huge trophy at the end of the day if you solve this problem well.
Right.
So to me as a founder, nothing excites me more than something which has purpose as well as value both together.
Right.
So I think that's something that keeps driving me. And I think early this year I was sitting with a very senior entrepreneur, and talking about it,
Right.
and we also had an acquisition offer, and I was saying, look, the only day I would think about an acquisition is when I think there's no headroom for growth, right?
Right.
And to me, we are still scratching the surface. There's so much more to do in this,
Right.
and some of the best companies are built and I really like the way Peter Thiel thinks about it, right? What valuable company nobody else is building, right? And if you have those insights on what valuable company nobody else is building, I think you got to put your head down and keep executing.
Interesting. My last question. This is so. I ask. I don't necessarily get into a fundraising question with many founders, right? Because that's a very obvious answer, right? I think if you're in the startup ecosystem, if you're building for scale, that is something that you're bound to do, right? The difference is, Hemant, that not across many conversations do you see the clarity of purpose, right? Something that you highlighted, right? What's fundraising for you, right? How do you see that? What are some of, so for example, factors that you think a founder should consider while he or she is, she aspires to create a good company and raise capital in the process?
Yeah. So I think it's a very simple. It's like a meal, Ashu, right?
Correct.
Not many of us can go and farm our own vegetables and fruits and then eat them, right? So I think bootstrapping will be limited to very less people, right? We all of us would end up going out and getting vegetables and other things. So it's like you need fuel,
Right.
but there's a right time to it. There is a right composition to it, right? Invest like entrepreneurs who know when to raise and how much to raise are the ones who actually end up using it in the right way.
Right.
Uh, Funding is not a goal; it's actually a means to achieving the larger goals. Been pretty lucky, I think, to have the right set of investors till now. Yeah, pretty lucky to partner with some of the best investors going forward as well. And even last round that we were trying to raise, we had a very good traction from a bunch of investors. I think all pretty good guys, right?
Right.
But we ended up choosing the ones which we thought aligned with our vision,
Right.
who really believed in what we're trying to build, and are ready to take that large bet, right? And say, okay, let's go and take this head on, right? And that's I think how funding looks, at least to me, right?
I think
Uh,
what you also,
it's a desperate world, right? As an entrepreneur, you're really fighting lonely, right? So I think a lot of times funding then ends up becoming one way to make yourself believe that you're
well,
doing may
yeah,
not be true, right?
yeah,
At least release your failure, right? So it can be. There are a lot of things bad about it as well,
correct.
but it's like anything else in the world, right? If you've got to be very conscious about it, and if you're conscious, then it will be a huge value add.
Interesting. I like the way you put it, Hemant. I like the way you put it, and I think I wish, this is a sign of a very, mature, maturing ecosystem, mature founder, right? Where you know what it's going to deliver to you, right? And I think what I also kind of read in what you're saying is it's important to question the other person, right? Who's on the other side of the table, right? And I think that alignment of vision is very, very important. And if you are selling a dream which is not or will not be fulfilled, right? It will eventually lead into a crash and burn story, right? Which is not good for, I think, anybody in the ecosystem. So I think being responsible in that sense is very, very important, and that's essentially what you're highlighting. Hemant, it's been a pleasure to have you, and a conversation that I've enjoyed thoroughly. Thank you so much for being with us, taking the time out. It was absolutely incredible.
Hey, thanks, Ashu. Thanks for having me. I absolutely enjoyed the conversation and keep doing the great work you guys are doing. Yeah.
Thank you.